Donnie Yen Ji-dan. Just the mention of his name makes martial arts fans sit up straighter. He's more than just an action star from Hong Kong movies. He's a cultural icon who has shaped how the world views martial arts on screen. From Ip Man to Rogue One, Yen has stunned audiences with his lightning-fast fists, powerful kicks, and his magnetic presence. But behind the movie sets, the red carpets, and the perfectly choreographed fight scenes lies a fascinating life filled with struggles, triumphs, reinventions, and surprising truths that even some of his biggest fans don't know. Today, we rediving deep into the top 10 most incredible facts about Donnie Yen Ji-dan, and you're about to discover just how much of a fighter he really is, both on screen and off. So buckle up, because this isn't just about the movies. This is about the man behind the legend. Number 10. Born into martial arts royalty. Donnie Yen wasn't just some kid who stumbled into kung fu classes because he thought Bruce Lee was cool. No, his story is rooted in martial arts from the very beginning, practically from the cradle. Yen was born in Guangzhou, China in 1963, but his family moved to Hong Kong and later to Boston, Massachusetts when he was still young. What's fascinating is that his mother, Bo Sim Mark, was herself a highly respected martial arts master, particularly in Tai Chi and internal martial arts. Imagine being raised in a household where martial arts weren't just a hobby. They were a way of life, a family tradition, almost like a religion. Growing up in Boston in the 1970s, Donnie Yen was surrounded by two worlds that rarely overlapped. On one hand, he had his mother, who taught traditional Chinese martial arts with discipline and deep philosophy. On the other hand, he was living in America at a time when kung fu movies were exploding in popularity thanks to Bruce Lee, but martial arts culture was still seen as exotic and niche. He didn't just practice martial arts because his mom told him to. He embraced it. He threw himself into hours of training, sometimes mixing in Western fighting styles he saw in American gyms, like boxing and karate, with the Chinese disciplines he inherited. That blending of East and West would later become a signature of his film fight choreography. But here's the kicker. His mother wasn't just any martial arts teacher. Bo Sim Mark was a pioneer who established her own martial arts school in Boston, one of the first of its kind in the U.S. That school became a hub for young Chinese immigrants who wanted to hold on to their cultural roots. Donnie grew up in this environment, where martial arts wasn't just self-defense. It was identity, heritage, and even survival in a new country. Many immigrant kids in Boston back then faced bullying, cultural isolation, and racism. Donnie Yen had his fists, his mother's teachings, and a determination to carve out his place in that tough environment. What's even more remarkable is how early he displayed his obsession with martial arts films. He would sneak into Boston's Chinatown theaters to watch the latest Hong Kong kung fu flicks, mesmerized by the movements, the rhythm, the sheer poetry of the fights. He didn't just watch them, he studied them. He would practice what he saw on screen, breaking down the moves like a scientist. That's something that separated him even then. He wasn't just mimicking, he was analyzing, deconstructing, reinventing, and that, more than anything else, set him on the path to become one of the greatest action stars in the world. So, while many Hollywood actors train for roles later in life, Donnie Yen was practically raised in a dojo. His entire childhood was marinated in martial arts. You could say he was born into martial arts royalty, destined to bring those skills to the global stage. Number 9. The Bruce Lee of his generation. When you hear the name Donnie Yen, it's almost impossible not to think of Bruce Lee. The parallels are too strong to ignore. Both were born in Asia, raised partly in the West, and returned to Asia to dominate martial arts cinema. But here's the twist. Donnie Yen never set out to copy Bruce Lee. Instead, he reinvented what Bruce Lee started, adding his own layer of creativity and realism. In the 1980s and 1990s, Hong Kong cinema was flooded with martial arts films, but many of them were more about flashy wirework and exaggerated stunts than authentic fighting. Donnie Yen stood out because his choreography emphasized speed, impact, and believability. He wanted audiences to feel the punch, not just admire the acrobatics. That's why directors began to call him the Bruce Lee of his generation. It wasn't just about the moves. It was about the attitude, the charisma, the ability to command the screen with pure physicality. One of the best examples of this came in the 1992 film Once Upon a Time in China the Takodungan, where Donnie Yen played General Naplan opposite Jet Li. The final fight between Yen and Li is still considered one of the greatest martial arts battles ever put on film. It wasn't just two guys kicking and punching. It was like watching two philosophies of martial arts clash. Jet Li brought elegance and precision, while Donnie Yen delivered raw speed and explosive power. That fight alone cemented his reputation as a next-generation martial arts icon. But here's something that makes Yen's story even more inspiring. Early in his career, he faced a lot of skepticism. Some critics and producers did not think he had the star power or the box office appeal to carry a film. He was told more than once that he was too intense, too real, that audiences preferred the wire-assisted fantasy of Jackie Chan or Jet Li. But Donnie Yen refused to change his style. He doubled down on authenticity. He believed that audiences would eventually crave something rawer, grittier, more grounded in real martial arts. And he was right. When the Ip Man films exploded in popularity years later, it was precisely because Yen delivered something that felt both cinematic and genuine. Another reason people compare him to Bruce Lee is his versatility. Yen doesn't just stick to one style. He's trained in multiple martial arts disciplines: Wing Chun, Taekwondo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, and even MMA techniques. And he brings all of that to the screen. This versatility mirrors Bruce Lee's famous philosophy of using no way as way, blending whatever works into a personal fighting system. In many ways, Donnie Yen became the embodiment of that philosophy for modern audiences. And let's not forget his impact beyond Asia. Just as Bruce Lee broke into Hollywood and changed how the West viewed martial arts, Donnie Yen has done the same. His role as Chirrut Îmwe in Rogue One, a Star Wars story, introduced him to millions of viewers who may have never seen a Hong Kong martial arts film. And yet, even in a galaxy far, far away, he managed to stay true to his martial arts roots, delivering a performance that was spiritual, powerful, and unforgettable. So yes, while Donnie Yen will always stand on his own, there's a reason why fans call him the Bruce Lee of his generation. He didn't just follow in Bruce's footsteps. He expanded them, adapted them, and kept the fire burning for a new era. Number 8. A rebel who almost lost his path. Not every legend follows a clean, straight path to greatness, and Donnie Yen is no exception. Long before Hollywood red carpets and international fame, Yen was a rebellious teenager growing up in Boston's Chinatown. Surrounded by gangs, cultural clashes, and the struggle of immigrant identity, he often found himself walking on dangerous ground. Martial arts wasn't just a passion at that time. It was also his lifeline, a way to survive in an environment where being different meant being targeted. As the son of a martial arts master, Yen was expected to live with discipline, but like many teens, he had a defiant streak. He skipped classes, got into fights on the street, and spent long nights drifting between Chinatown corners and local gyms. In interviews, he admitted that he hung out with the wrong crowd, testing boundaries, and sometimes spiraling close to self-destruction. His mother, Bo Sim Mark, feared he would throw away both his talent and his future. There was one point where things nearly collapsed. Yen had a habit of sneaking out late to practice breakdancing, lifting weights, or test his fighting skills against anyone who dared. That obsession with pushing limits was double-edged. It gave him drive, but also exposed him to constant trouble. Boston police even had encounters with him, and his restless energy made it clear he couldn't be contained by ordinary rules. He wasn't a bad kid, but he was one step away from letting his anger and rebellion consume him. what saved him. Ironically, it was martial arts again, but not in the way you'd expect. His mother sent him back to China to train seriously at the Beijing Wushu Academy. For Yen, this was a turning point. Suddenly, he went from the rough neighborhoods of Boston to one of the most elite martial arts institutions in the world. This was the same academy that had produced Jet Li, a place where discipline was absolute and failure was not an option. At first, Yen struggled. He wasn't used to the rigid routine, the early mornings, the endless drills, but slowly he began to channel his rebellious fire into focus. Instead of fighting against rules, he started mastering them. That period forged the Donnie Yen we know today. It transformed him from a reckless youth into a disciplined warrior. And here's the thing. His rebellious past never disappeared. It became part of his identity. When you watch Yen fight on screen, you see not just training and technique, but raw defiance. The spirit of a kid who once refused to back down in Boston's streets. That authenticity is part of why his fight scenes hit so hard. He's not just playing a fighter, he is one. In a way, Donnie Yen's near downfall became his greatest strength. He didn't have the smooth, polished path of a model student or a child prodigy. He was forged in fire, half on the streets, half in the dojo, and that blend made him unique. Every punch he throws on screen carries the memory of that kid who nearly lost his way, only to find redemption through discipline. And that S, why his story resonates with so many fans worldwide, because it's not just about glory, it's about survival. Number 7. Reinventing martial arts cinema. If Donnie Yen had simply stuck to being a great martial artist on screen, he would have been impressive enough. But what makes him legendary is that he reinvented martial arts cinema itself. His fingerprints are all over modern fight choreography, shaping not only Hong Kong films but also Hollywood blockbusters. In the 1990s, action films often relied on wirework and exaggerated stunts. Audiences loved the spectacle, but it sometimes felt too fantastical. Donnie Yen had a vision. He wanted fights to look cinematic but also grounded in real combat. He introduced a style known as MMA choreography, long before mixed martial arts exploded into the mainstream. In movies like SPL, Shapo Lang, 2005, he incorporated techniques from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, and grappling into traditional kung fu sequences. The result? Brutal, bone-crunching fights that felt both fresh and terrifyingly real. One standout example is his alley fight against Wu Jing in SPL. The sequence is short but unforgettable. Fast, raw, no wires, no gimmicks. It shocked audiences because it looked like something you might actually see in a street fight, but filmed with cinematic clarity. Critics hailed it as a game changer. Suddenly, action movies couldn't rely on the same old tropes anymore. Donnie Yen had raised the bar. Another milestone came with Flash Point, 2007, where he fully embraced MMA-style choreography. This was years before the UFC became mainstream entertainment in America, yet Yen was already blending takedowns, joint locks, and ground and pound into his fight scenes. For martial arts fans, it was like watching the future unfold. For casual viewers, it was electrifying because it looked so real. Hollywood took notice. Action directors around the world began studying his work, copying elements of his choreography and trying to capture the same intensity. But Yen's reinvention wasn't just about moves, it was about rhythm. He understood that a fight scene is like music. It has tempo, pauses, crescendos, and climaxes. Too much non-stop punching, and the audience gets numb. Too much slow motion, and the energy fades. Yen perfected the balance. Watch his fight scenes closely and you will see the precision. Bursts of speed followed by sudden stillness, quick exchanges that explode into dramatic finishes. That's not an accident. It's choreography designed to make you feel every moment. And here's where his American upbringing played a role again. Donnie Yen wasn't limited to one cultural lens. He fused Hong Kong's martial arts traditions with Western cinematic pacing. His fights felt like a bridge between East and West, authentic enough for kung fu purists, but cinematic enough for global audiences raised on Hollywood action flicks. That dual identity made his work universal. His influence even reached Hollywood directly. When Yen joined Rogue One, a Star Wars story, he insisted on designing his own fight choreography for Chirrut Imwe. He wanted the blind warrior monk to move with authenticity, not like a generic action hero. The result was one of the film's most memorable characters, a man who combined spirituality with deadly skill. Yen's fingerprints were all over those scenes, once again proving he wasn't just an actor, he was a choreographer, a visionary. Today, many younger action stars openly credit Donnie Yen as their inspiration. His approach reshaped the expectations of what martial arts cinema could be. He didn't just follow the formula, he rewrote it, and in doing so he ensured that martial arts movies would remain not just entertaining, but evolving, alive and relevant in every generation. Sucker 6. The Ip Man. Transformation. If there's one role that forever changed Donnie Yen's career, it was Ip Man. Before 2008, Yen was respected among martial arts fans but hadn't yet achieved household name recognition outside Asia. That changed the moment he stepped into the shoes of Ip Man, the legendary Wing Chun master who famously trained Bruce Lee. This wasn't just another kung fu movie role, it was destiny colliding with preparation. When director Wilson Yip approached Yen about the project, the actor immediately recognized the weight of responsibility. Portraying Ip Man wasn't like playing a fictional hero. It was about honoring a real man, a revered martial artist whose influence stretched across the world. Yen dove headfirst into research, studying not only Wing Chun techniques but also Ip Man's mannerisms, philosophy, and even his humble lifestyle in Foshan. He trained intensively with Wing Chun masters, drilling the rapid chain punches, centerline theory, and trapping techniques until they became second nature. But what set his portrayal apart wasn't just physical mastery, it was restraint. Ip Man wasn't a flashy fighter. He was calm, disciplined, almost understated. Yen had to shed his usual explosive style and embody quiet strength. That transformation was stunning. On screen, his Ip Man radiated dignity, wisdom, and humility. Yet when forced into combat, he unleashed lightning-fast movements that took audiences' breath away. The timing of Ip Man's release was also crucial. By 2008, martial arts cinema had become saturated with fantasy-driven spectacles, heavy wirework, and CGI. Audiences were craving something grounded, something that felt authentic. Yen delivered exactly that. The fight scenes, like Ip Man taking down 10 Japanese karate fighters single-handedly, were not just cinematic. They carried emotional weight, symbolizing resistance and pride in the face of oppression. The movie was a box office phenomenon in Asia and a cult hit internationally. Suddenly, Donnie Yen wasn't just a martial arts star, he was a cultural ambassador. He introduced millions of viewers to Wing Chun, sparking a worldwide surge in interest. Martial arts schools across the globe reported spikes in students wanting to learn Wing Chun, inspired by Yen's performance. And the success didn't stop with the first film. The Ip Man series spawned 3 sequels, each exploring different stages of Ip Man's life and his struggles against adversity. What's remarkable is how Yen managed to keep each film fresh. In Ip Man 2, he clashed with Western boxing, facing off against a towering British champion in a brutal East versus West showdown. In Ip Man 3, he delivered an unforgettable fight against Mike Tyson, blending cinematic spectacle with raw intensity. By Ip Man 4, the finale, Yen had elevated Ip Man into not just a kung fu legend, but a universal symbol of resilience and honor. The role took its toll. Yen admitted the training and preparation were grueling, and the pressure of living up to Ip Man's legacy weighed heavily on him. Yet he also described the role as transformative, not just for his career, but for his personal philosophy. Playing Ip Man deepened his understanding of humility, patience, and discipline. It softened his public image too, turning him from a sometimes intense action star into a figure admired for wisdom and grace. Today, many fans around the world know Donnie Yen first and foremost as Ip Man. The character became inseparable from his identity, much like how Sylvester Stallone will always be remembered as Rocky or Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. But the difference is this: Yen didn't just play Ip Man. In many ways, he became Ip Man, carrying the master's spirit into the 21st century and ensuring his legacy would never be forgotten. Number 5. From Asia to Hollywood stardom. Breaking into Hollywood is no easy feat, especially for Asian actors. For decades, roles were limited, often stereotyped, and rarely showcased authentic martial arts. But Donnie Yen managed to do what few had achieved. He crossed over, not by abandoning his roots, but by embracing them. His first brush with Hollywood came in the early 2000s. He appeared in Highlander, Endgame, 2000, which gave him a taste of Western filmmaking. But it wasn't until Blade 2, 2002, that Yen really made an impression. Cast as Snowman, a member of a vampire hunting crew, Yen brought his trademark speed and style to the film. More importantly, he also served as a fight choreographer, shaping the action sequences behind the scenes. This was Hollywood's first real glimpse at his genius, even if he wasn't the star. Yen continued working in both Hong Kong and Hollywood throughout the 2000s. But it was Rogue One, a Star Wars story, 2016, that catapulted him into true international stardom. Playing Chirrut Imwe, a blind warrior monk with unshakable faith in the Force, Yen stole the show. He wasn't just a side character. He became the emotional heart of the film. Lines like, "I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me," resonated with fans, and his staff fighting sequences brought martial arts authenticity into the Star Wars universe for the first time. What's remarkable is how Yen fought to shape Chirrut's character. Initially, the script had less depth, but Yen pushed for more development. He wanted Chirrut to be more than a martial artist. He wanted him to have soul, humor, and humanity. The result was a character who balanced light-heartedness with spiritual gravitas, instantly winning over audiences worldwide. Hollywood doors swung open after that. Yen was cast in XXX, Return of Xander Cage, 2017, alongside Vin Diesel, where he nearly stole the spotlight with his charisma and action scenes. Suddenly, Western studios realized that Yen wasn't just a kung fu guy, he was a leading man who could carry a blockbuster. What is inspiring about Yen S.'s Hollywood journey is that he didn't have to compromise who he was. Many Asian actors in Hollywood struggle with being typecast or sidelined. Yen, however, demanded respect for his craft. He insisted on authenticity in his fight choreography, often rejecting stunt doubles, and made sure his characters were three-dimensional. He also brought something rare, an ability to appeal to both hardcore martial arts fans and casual audiences who just wanted great entertainment. Of course, it wasn't all smooth. Hollywood has historically struggled with giving Asian actors equal opportunities. But Yen's persistence, combined with his undeniable talent, forced the industry to take notice. Today, he stands among the few who successfully built a bridge between Eastern and Western cinema. And he's not done. In 2023, Yen joined the John Wick, Chapter 4, universe as Kane, a blind assassin who brought both lethal elegance and emotional depth to the franchise. His performance was widely praised, with many calling him the highlight of the film. Once again, he demonstrated that he could elevate any project he touched, whether in Hong Kong or Hollywood. From Guangzhou to Boston, from Hong Kong film sets to the galaxy of Star Wars. And the neon streets of John Wick, Donnie Yen's journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. He didn't just cross over into Hollywood. He redefined what was possible for Asian actors in the West. Year 4, a family man behind the fighter. On screen, Donnie Yen is a whirlwind of fists and kicks, but behind the cameras, he's a devoted husband and father who values family above all else. What many fans don't realize is how much his personal life grounds him and shapes the choices he makes in his career. Yen married former beauty queen Sissy Wang in 2003, and by all accounts their relationship has been one of the most stabilizing forces in his life. In interviews, he often credits her with helping him balance the pressures of fame with the responsibilities of fatherhood. Together, they have 2 children, Jasmine and James, and Yen also has an older daughter, Jeff, from a previous marriage. Now, here is what makes this fact so interesting. Donnie Yen has admitted that fatherhood changed the way he views his work. In his early years, he was all about pushing boundaries, riskier stunts, grueling training schedules, non-stop projects. But once he became a father, he started thinking long-term. Could he keep doing dangerous stunts if it meant possibly not being there for his kids? Could he spend every day on set and still call himself a present father? These questions began shaping his decisions. For instance, Yen is known for doing his own fight choreography and stunts, but he has scaled back on certain risks in recent years. Not because he's lost passion, but because he knows his kids need him more than audiences need one more jaw-dropping stunt. That doesn't mean he's any less intense. If anything, he's more calculated, ensuring that what he does on screen delivers maximum impact without unnecessary danger. Beyond his immediate family, Yen also shoulders responsibility as a cultural figure. He's spoken openly about wanting to be a role model, especially for Asian kids growing up in the West. Having lived through racism and cultural isolation himself in Boston, he knows how important representation can be. By being visible in global blockbusters, by showing discipline and pride in his heritage, Yen isn't just inspiring future martial artists. He is inspiring kids who need to see someone like them succeed on the biggest stages. Family has also influenced his public image. Earlier in his career, Yen sometimes carried a reputation for being hot-tempered on set. But as he grew older and his role as a father deepened, people noticed a softer, more patient side. He became not just the fighter who could dominate the screen, but the father who could laugh with his kids, cook dinner at home, and still carry himself with humility despite fame. That duality, fearsome on screen, grounded at home, makes him more relatable and more respected. There's also something distinctly American about how Yen approaches family. Growing up as an immigrant kid in Boston, he saw firsthand how hard his parents worked to provide stability. He's carried that forward, determined to give his children a life where they can embrace both Chinese heritage and global identity without conflict. In many ways, Donnie Yen Ji-dan's biggest fight isn't safety in front of cameras. It is ensuring his kids grow up with more security and opportunity than he ever had. So, while audiences may cheer for Ip Man's lightning punches or Kane's deadly elegance in John Wick, Donnie Yen's proudest victories happen off-screen, in family dinners and bedtime stories, and in being the kind of father who proves that behind every great warrior there's a man who fights hardest for the people he loves. 3. Business mind and cultural ambassador. Most people know Donnie Yen as a martial artist and actor, but fewer realize he is also a savvy businessman and cultural ambassador who has used his fame to bridge East and West in more ways than one. Yen has invested in multiple ventures beyond film, ranging from property to entertainment production. Unlike some celebrities who simply attach their name to brands, Yen is hands-on, often overseeing creative aspects and ensuring that projects align with his personal philosophy. For example, he's been involved in producing films, giving him more control over how martial arts and Asian culture are represented on screen. That business acumen has allowed him to avoid being pigeonholed as just an actor, and instead position himself as a creator with global influence. One fascinating part of his business mindset is how he leverages his multicultural background. Having grown up in both China and the United States, Yen understands the nuances of appealing to different audiences. In Asia, authenticity and tradition matter, In the West, accessibility and spectacle often drive success. Yen has mastered the art of delivering both. His choreography is rooted in real martial arts but designed with cinematic flair, making it universally appealing. That same approach extends to his branding, where he markets himself as both a Hong Kong action star and a Hollywood player. But beyond business, Yen takes his role as a cultural ambassador seriously. He frequently participates in charity events, cultural festivals, and campaigns promoting Chinese martial arts. He sees martial arts not just as combat techniques but as philosophy, a way of life that teaches discipline, respect, and balance. By bringing that message into global platforms like Star Wars or John Wick, Yen ensures that audiences worldwide see martial arts as more than entertainment. They see it as culture. A great example of his ambassador role came during the global press tours for Ip Man 4. Yen didn't just promote the film, he promoted Wing Chun itself. He spoke passionately about Ip Man's legacy, about the philosophy of humility and perseverance, and about why martial arts remains relevant in modern society. For many Western audiences, it was the first time they heard these ideas outside of clichés. Yen gave them authenticity, straight from the source. What's also notable is how Yen has embraced social media and modern branding. Unlike some of his Hong Kong contemporaries who remained mostly regional figures, Yen cultivated a global presence. He interacts with fans worldwide, sharing glimpses of both his professional projects and personal life. That accessibility makes him stand out as not just a distant star, but a cultural bridge. It's also worth pointing out how he navigates sensitive issues. As someone who straddles East and West, Yen often finds himself in the middle of political and cultural tensions. Yet he manages to maintain respect on both sides by focusing on shared values: family, discipline, honor, perseverance. That ability to unify rather than divide is part of what makes him so influential. In many ways, Donnie Yen's greatest contribution might not be any single fight scene or film, but the way he has used his platform to elevate martial arts and Asian representation on a global scale. He's not just a fighter or an actor. He's a businessman, a teacher, a cultural envoy, and through that he ensures that martial arts isn't just something audiences watch, it's something they respect. Number 2. Discipline, fitness, and the relentless training regime. When you watch Donnie Yen on screen, those rapid-fire punches, those gravity-defying kicks, it's tempting to think it's all just movie magic. But here's the reality. What you see is the product of decades of discipline and one of the most intense fitness routines in the film industry. Even in his 60s, Yen maintains a body and stamina that would make athletes half his age jealous. Unlike many stars who rely heavily on stunt doubles or camera tricks, Yen's performances come from genuine physical conditioning. His training doesn't just focus on martial arts techniques, it's a comprehensive regime combining strength, agility, flexibility, and cardiovascular endurance. He has openly talked about how he mixes traditional martial arts drills with modern methods: weightlifting, resistance training, plyometrics, and even yoga to maintain balance and prevent injuries. What's truly fascinating is how he adapts his training for each role. For Ip Man, he slimmed down and focused heavily on Wing Chun-specific movements: fast chain punches, centerline control, close-quarter striking. The goal wasn't just to look like Ip Man but to move like him, with calm precision and hidden power. For Flash Point and SPL, where the choreography leaned more toward MMA, Yen trained with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners and wrestlers, ensuring that his ground techniques looked authentic. And for John Wick, Chapter 4, where he played the blind assassin Kane, he adjusted his style to emphasize fluidity, subtlety, and a cane-based weapon system. This ability to transform physically and technically for each character is one of Yen's greatest assets. He treats every role as an opportunity to evolve, to learn something new, to push his body beyond its limits. And he's relentless about it. Stories from set often describe him training long after others had left, drilling sequences until they were second nature. That obsession with perfection is why his fight scenes feel so sharp, so effortless, so real. But there's another layer to his discipline: his diet and lifestyle. Yen is known for maintaining a clean, protein-rich diet, carefully controlling what he eats to fuel his training without unnecessary bulk. He avoids excessive alcohol, prioritizes recovery, and follows strict routines to keep his energy consistent. In a Hollywood culture where many actors rely on short-term transformations, Donnie Yen's approach is sustainable, a lifelong commitment to discipline, and the results speak for themselves. At an age when most action stars retire or slow down, Yen is still leading blockbusters, still performing his own stunts, still redefining what martial arts cinema can be. His body has become not just a tool for performance, but a living symbol of dedication, resilience, and longevity. For fans, it's inspiring. Watching Donnie Yen isn't just about entertainment. It's a reminder of what's possible when discipline becomes a way of life. In a culture often obsessed with shortcuts and quick results, Yen proves that consistency and relentless effort are the true keys to mastery. Number 1. A global legacy that transcends film. The number one fact about Donnie Yen isn't just about his movies, his martial arts, or even his fame. It's about his legacy, the impact he has left on cinema, culture, and generations of fans around the world. Think about it. Donnie Yen is one of the few figures who successfully bridged the gap between Hong Kong martial arts cinema and Hollywood blockbusters. He didn't just star in films. He changed the language of action cinema itself. Directors, choreographers, and even fighters study his work, analyzing the rhythm, the authenticity, the raw power of his fight scenes. His choreography has influenced everything from Asian TV dramas to big-budget Hollywood franchises. But his legacy extends beyond entertainment. For countless fans, especially those of Asian descent, Yen represents possibility. He shows that you don't have to fit into Hollywood's narrow stereotypes. You can define your own path, bring your culture with you, and still succeed globally. He's not just a martial arts actor. He's a role model who proves that authenticity, discipline, and persistence can overcome cultural and industry barriers. And then there's the way he's immortalized martial arts philosophy for modern audiences. Through roles like Ip Man and Chirrut Imwe, Yen has reminded viewers that martial arts isn't only about fighting. It's about discipline, respect, humility, and inner strength. In a time when movies often glorify violence, Yen uses action to teach values, to connect people with something deeper. That's rare, and it's part of why his influence will endure long after he hangs up his gloves. Yen's legacy is also global in reach. In Asia, he is a cultural hero, a man who carried forward traditions while pushing them into the future. In the West, he's a respected actor who brought authenticity to franchises like Star Wars and John Wick. In both worlds, he stands as proof that art, culture, and storytelling can transcend borders. When future generations look back on martial arts cinema, names like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and Donnie Yen will stand side by side. Each brought something unique. But Yen's gift was timing. He emerged at a moment when audiences were ready for realism, authenticity, and evolution. And he delivered, ensuring that martial arts cinema didn't fade into nostalgia but remained vital, thrilling, and relevant. In short, Donnie Yen's greatest fact isn't just what he has done. It is what he represents. A legacy of discipline, authenticity, and cultural pride that will inspire generations to come. So, there you have it, the top 10 facts about Donnie Yen Ji-dan, a man who was born into martial arts, shaped by rebellion, transformed by discipline, and elevated into a global icon. From the streets of Boston to the legendary role of Ip Man, from reinventing martial arts cinema to carrying the Star Wars saga, Yen's journey is the story of a fighter, a family man, a visionary, and a legend. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends so more people can discover the incredible story of Donnie Yen. Don T, forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the legends who shaped history, cinema, and culture. And drop a comment below. What's your favorite Donnie Yen moment? We'd love to hear your thoughts. The story of Donnie Yen isn't finished yet, and neither is our journey. Stay tuned, because the world of martial arts cinema still has many secrets waiting to be revealed.